I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute and your devil's advocate. I want to let you know that the camera adds 10 pounds, and there's something like 5 cameras here. I'm remarkably good looking in real life. All right, my hometown is Boulder. Yes, Boulder. Why? Because they needed some contrast, and they hire me there just as a token, kind of like what Colorado Public Television does. What I thought we'd do tonight is talk about electricity, particularly in Boulder. Why? Because what Boulder does affects the rest of the state. Boulder was the first to have a smoking ban. Now the rest of the state has a smoking ban. Urban growth boundaries, open space, all these things, goofy things, start in Boulder and then go out to the real world. So to talk about a municipalization, Boulder buying their own power and having the power plants, Susan Perkins from Renewables Yes. Thank you for being there.
You're welcome.
And somebody running for City Council up in Boulder, SAP, Mark Gelband. Thank you for being here. You're also a community activist, and you've got, you're not officially with the anti-side, but
I support their position.
You support their position. All right.
And I'm glad to be here.
All right. First of all, let's set the stage here, because as Colorado moves to the new energy economy, and more of our electricity comes from pinwheels and solar panels, and we're supposed to get to 30% renewable energy by 2020. I'm trying to remember. You know, we're all going to be dealing with this. So talk to me a little bit about where most people in the metro area get their power. Who provides it?
People in this metro area currently get their power from XL Energy.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Just like that. Including me up in Boulder. All right. And how long have I been getting power from XL or whatever XL was before
Decades.
that?
Decades. Boulder has been renegotiating its franchise agreement with XL Energy for every 20 years for decades.
All right. So every 20 years a contract is up and they say, all right, XL, work us out a deal. And XL says we can provide it for this much in that area. But there's a lot of state oversight of this. They can't charge Boulder a whole lot more than they charge other areas that they serve, correct?
That's exactly right. What we have here in Colorado is we have basically a centrally planned economy, if you will, at the state level, where XL Energy, although it's a private company, it's an investor-owned utility, is regulated both by the laws of the state and by the PUC, which is an administration elected, the commissioners of which are appointed by the current governor. So basically we have what is a one-size-fits-all regulation approach that creates policies, practices, and generation for XL Energy based upon the entire service area being served by XL.
All right. Now, you've been in Boulder for a long time. I've been there longer. I've been able to turn on my light switch each and every day, and the power has come on just fine. I haven't really given it much thought. Have you?
I think I've given it a little bit more thought than that. I am someone who already net produces local and renewable energy to the grid. I made a personal investment in a PV system.
My guess is you got a very subsidized system from the government, so you didn't invest nearly as much of your own money as taxpayers did. Would I be right?
You're absolutely right.
So send us a thank you note.
Oh, I've sent those thank you notes out many times. I'm also a fairly pragmatic business person, so when I ran the numbers, I understood that I couldn't make it work and that solar really doesn't work right now without subsidies. We could talk about oil subsidies as well, but I know that we're going to focus on energy here, or what Boulder is doing. But I believed in it, and I thought it was important because I like to walk my talk on renewable energy. But I started with some other more cost-effective steps. I live in the oldest house in my neighborhood. It was the first house built in that subdivision. It was built with 2x4 construction and no insulation. And I took some steps like a home energy audit first and made the cost-effective fixes that I could so that I could lower my kilowatt-hour usage a month. I also built by myself and a handful of friends an addition to my home and for my expanding family, and at the same time lowered my usage even further. And then I invested in a PV system because, again, it made business sense. Let's talk about the subsidies.
I tell you, I wanted to talk about the subsidies, but I want to get to what Boulder's trying to do. So, 20 years ago, we had this nice contract with whatever XL was back then. I think it was Public Service of Colorado.
Public Service Company. And in fact, there was a big conversation about whether that franchise should be entered into. And there were some severe reservations about the direction that Public Service Company was going at that time.
Today, the contract is coming to the end, and the City of Boulder wants to ask us, the taxpayers, to say yes to something. What is it that's going to be on the ballot, and what exactly does City Council want to do?
Well, it's actually not the taxpayers per se. It's
the ratepayers.
So it's based upon how much you consume electricity. What they're asking for two things. They're asking for an extension and an increase in the occupation tax, which is, again, use-oriented with electricity and collected by Xcel, remitted to the city, of up to $1.9 million to cover the interim costs of continuing to explore the economic fundamentals of creating a municipal electric utility. Those are, what's the acquisition cost?
If I were to put this into really dumb language for me, really, basically, the city wants to take over the power system. Would that be the simplest way to put it?
That's the simplest way.
Okay, all right. Okay. So the city of Boulder, that has outlawed owning dogs, you can be a dog guardian, and has outlawed the angel tree, and you can't have frisbees on the Pearl Street Mall, and it's a nuclear-free zone. These guys want to take over the electricity production in Boulder. Do I have that right?
That is correct. Keep in mind, however, that Boulder has cumulatively 230 years experience running utilities. 230 years. They run a water utility, they run a sewer utility, and they run a flood and storm water control utility. And these date back, two of them date back to the mid to late 1800s. So
very different thing, though. Cities all over run water. Water flows downhill. Electricity is a little bit different.
Well,
but would you give the city credit?
Let me just interject. Cities all over run municipal electric utilities, too. This would be the 30th in Colorado.
And they shouldn't. But we'll get into that.
Well, beyond that, whether you believe they should or they shouldn't, is that those 29 other utilities were started 50 years ago. Most of them even more so than that. So I just want to correct a handful of things. The city's contract with Xcel expired 15 months ago, and we've been operating 15 months without a contract.
And the lights did not go out.
Right, because Xcel is providing service. But hang on a second. I don't
interrupt you. I don't have to pay my bill right now?
They said the lights would go out if the franchise was terminated.
Can I finish? Also, it's not ratepayers in Boulder who will be making this decision. It's residents of Boulder. So let's be clear, because residents represent 20% of the rate paying, and businesses represent 80% of the rate paying in Boulder. But it's residents who will be making this decision. Now, if we want to talk about...
Let's stop there, because these are all great points. It's a fair point to say that consumers of electricity are not always the ones who get to vote on that. That, for instance, Denver has a head tax if you work in Denver, but you don't get to vote on that if you live in Aurora, but you work in Denver. In the same way, businesses who operate in Boulder are going to be paying more when the city takes over power. Is that a fair thing to say?
That is not a fair thing to say, because the way this is structured is that if and when the city creates a municipal electric utility, they have to do so at rate parity with Xcel Energy. So we cannot assume that they will be paying more if the city starts its own municipal electric utility.
Did you hear a little giggle over there? Well, tell me about that.
It was a snicker.
In all fairness, it was a snicker.
All right. So the snicker, when you said that it will be at parity with Xcel, that if we say yes to this in Boulder, you and I, you don't even live in Boulder, so you won't be able to vote on this. You and I will be able to vote on this. If we vote yes, it will be at the same rate as Xcel. Is that correct?
Well,
or less.
Or less. Oh my God, this is a deal.
That's sort of like saying 5 years ago, because the mortgage company would have given me the right to buy a $1.2 million home, I could have afforded it. So if you look at the city's feasibility study, not only are they fudging the numbers in terms of what they say this is actually going to cost, and when they say rate parity at the time of acquisition, certainly doesn't guarantee going forward rate parity. But also,
let's get a definition. Rate parity means what exactly?
Equal or less than the comparable rates charged by Xcel Energy for each customer class. So residential rates, industrial rates, and commercial rates.
So if I vote yes on this, you are going to guarantee me that I will pay what Xcel charges or less.
Yes, absolutely.
And that is in this proposal.
It is perpetuity?
In perpetuity?
In perpetuity?
Well,
no, it's only at the time of acquisition. Please read that. That is incorrect.
But you can't switch the argument. We're talking about bonding of the one-time cost and the rates that would be set. Once you lock that in, it's like your mortgage payment. Of course, you then determine what your mortgage payment is. The point here is, and you can go to George K. Baum, the big bond house or whatever, but the point here is that...
Oh, I love George K. Baum. Let me tell you, behind every tax increase is a good bond house.
So there are bookends. One bookend is rate parity. The other bookend is 125% of the debt service payment has to be made. And this translates to an extra $5 million a year that has to go into working capital.
Why do we need to go to debt? Why do we need to raise taxes and go into debt? What's the debt going to be used for?
This is not bonds are not taxes that raise debt. They are specific to the entity. Therefore, only the electric utility would repay these bonds.
Why am I going into debt? What is it that I'm purchasing with this debt?
What you would purchase with the debt is the wires and poles in Boulder.
We're buying this stuff from Xcel.
Exactly.
Well, but let's be clear. We are buying wires and poles in a 19th century transmission system and not 1 kilowatt hour of local or renewable energy. I want to correct a couple other things too. One, the tax is $1.9 million per year for 5 years. It's about $11.8 million. Another thing, can I finish, please? Another thing I'd like to mention too, because we mentioned the fact that what she calls 3 utilities is really 1 utility under 1 bill. It's our water utility, and I want to mention that. So one of the things that proponents use to discuss why we should do this is because of how crazy Xcel's rates are, and we have no control. Well, Xcel's rates undoubtedly have gone up. They've gone up 47% in the last 10, 11 years. Our city's utility water rates, the city says, have gone up over 159% in that same time, so 3 times. Another thing, let me say one other...
No,
okay.
I'm not going to let you say nothing.
Okay.
Let me just see if I'm understanding, because whenever I hear numbers, I need to stop for a second. So while Xcel is charging us more, it's gone up by how much in the last couple of years?
47% in the last decade.
But the government-owned utilities, that is water and wastewater and stormwater, has gone up in that same period?
159%.
Why am I not surprised? But am I to believe that when Boulder takes over our power system, that costs are not going to go up? I want to know what guarantee I have.
They can't go up.
Wait.
Okay, go ahead.
That doesn't make sense. I mean, I take a look at the original renewable mandate here in Colorado that says, well, we can only go up 2% more. That's kind of like our debt ceiling nationally, saying, well, we're going to have this limit. Well, that limit gets busted. I can't see how electricity that is so expensive to manufacture is going to be able to stay at this rate. What guarantee, and I mean, where do I sue, to whom do I sue when the prices go up in Boulder?
Okay. What we're looking at here is we've got the prospect of a municipal electric utility, and 3 things still need to be determined: the bond rate, the acquisition cost, and any additional costs. So the vote right now is to continue to look at those things. What are the alternatives? The alternatives are Xcel Energy. The rates have gone up 7% this year. 7%. Xcel has projected a 4% increase until 2020, and then an 8% increase after that. So we have to compare to these 2 things.
I've grown up in Colorado, and I've been in Boulder since 1984. And let me tell you something. I'm pretty well guaranteed that the elite of Boulder that's pushing this doesn't do this because of cost. My guess is this has nothing to do with cost. This has something to do with carbon footprint, with renewables, with pushing a style of how we're going to make electricity, much more so than the cost. Now, George K. Baum or whatever bond house gets the deal, because God knows bond dealers are the only winners when taxes go up. I'm sensing they don't win.
Taxes? Okay.
We're paying more, aren't we?
If you buy something, I mean, you're saying that rates are going to go up, but we need to be very clear between rates and taxes.
But would you agree that really the push behind this is because the elite of Boulder want more feel-good energy, not because they want to keep rates down? Because I think those are 2 very opposite things.
I very much disagree. I think Boulder is a classy group of people that wants it all. I really do. They want it all.
I've lived in Boulder since college. It is a freak show of elitist yuppies now having money.
Okay, here's what they want. They want a deal. They want to save money. They want to be very rigorous with their money. They want local control. They want reliability. and they want safety.
Okay.
So and they want clean energy.
Stay classy, Boulder. You're a classy city. That's what it's always been told.
Classy.
Yeah, let's see. John Bonet, Ward Churchill. Yeah, classy. Over here.
I was with David Driscoll on Monday night doing something similar to this.
David Driscoll is?
David Driscoll is, I think, something like the Director of Community Sustainability in the Department of Community Sustainability and Planning.
Boy, that sounds like a Boulder position.
It is, and I'm not sure.
The Assistant Deputy Director of Sustainability and Planning for the Undersecretary of Urban Growth at Boulder, and you had a conversation.
So, no. So he presented. One of the things that he said, quote, was, "It doesn't matter who owns the lines and poles, rates are going up." Now, I agree with that, so let's not even have this discussion about rates except to correct the fact that rate parity is just used, again, in the language, at time of acquisition, which means nothing going forward. Now, one place and one thing that the proponents like to do is mention other municipalities. And Colorado Springs, our more conservative neighbor to the south, is a very successful muni that proponents like to point to. It might be the only time that Boulder likes to point to Colorado Springs as a model for anything. But the Springs has a core commitment to customers to keep their rates 20% lower in most cases to prevailing rates in the Front Range. The City of Boulder, in their charter language, has no such commitment to rate parity or keeping rates lower. It is just something to try to pass through.
Bring it over to Susan for a response.
bond.
I completely disagree. There is a requirement to have $5 million worth of working capital that can, every year, produced by this in order to create those bookends I talked about earlier. And the bookends are the debt service understanding and the rate parity. So as you feed that back into the system, basically you're owning what you used to lease. And I would say this, Boulder's already paid for that system how many times?
I don't know if I want to own 50-year-old power poles.
You already do. You're already paying for them. It's not negotiable.
I'll tell you what, I want to get to a couple commercials that both sides are putting out. But before that, I want to talk a little bit about Xcel. You know, the sad thing for me in this election is that both the city and Xcel can't both lose in this election. That would be the best part of all. Xcel has pushed its weight around. It has passed ridiculous laws in Colorado and has been able to pass its new costs for the new energy economy right on to those of us. In fact, Xcel, which serves about a 5-state region, the overwhelming amount of profits come from Colorado.
So
Isn't that amazing? That Xcel. So how do you feel that we're going to try to you know, between these two things, between crazy yuppie goofy elitists and evil corporate Xcel, where do you go?
I think you bring up one of the great points of why I'm not supporting this is because the city is putting forward this either-or fallacy that it has to be. It's an either-or monopoly fallacy. It has to be the monopoly of Xcel or the monopoly of the City of Boulder, neither of which that I want. I don't think Xcel is a trusted partner. I really don't think the City of Boulder is going to be a trusted partner. I don't understand why the city isn't spending some of their money to look at community choice aggregation, which has been passed in 5 other states.
That's a wonderful thing that I have no idea what it means.
So I'm going to tell you what it means.
Quickly.
It basically means it's opening up the market, like they've passed in California, New Jersey, et cetera, so that municipalities like Marin County or like Boulder, and something a real free market person would believe in, which is why we can't buy energy from more than one provider.
Great you would mention that, because I proposed that 3 years ago to several legislators, and we met with Xcel Energy to propose that.
The idea that individuals could purchase electricity from competing companies.
That we could basically just use the wires. Yeah. Why have to own the wires? Why don't we just let us buy the power we want?
In the same way we now
we'll pay you a lease.
In the same way we use phone systems today.
Exactly.
That we can use the cable, we can use the phone line, and people can. All right.
And they said,
I tell you what, let's take a look at some of these commercials because it's pretty interesting. First, let's start off here with the yes side. Now, if you're in Boulder, you're seeing this, but I want to give you a feel because what happens in Boulder comes to your city soon. Let's take a look.
I read these ads from Xcel, and then I researched the facts.
We can cut carbon emissions by 60% and increase renewables to 40%.
Colorado's municipal utilities have affordable rates and great reliability. Boulder can too.
We can have local control, local jobs, and innovative technologies instead of coal.
Let's make Boulder Light and Power Colorado's 30th Muni Electric Company. Vote yes on 2B and 2C.
Let me see if I got this right, because that is a beautiful Boulder ad where it has the elite coming up and saying, here's how it should be. We had a doctor followed by another doctor, followed by somebody who was part of the Natural Capitalism Solutions, which I have no idea what that is, but it's a beautiful Boulderish term, and then, of course, a government worker. I didn't see too many business people or ratepayers out there in that commercial saying, you know what, I'm doing this because I want to save some money.
Well, there is a big business coalition that has formed to support yes on 2B and 2C, so let me just say that right away. And just to let you know, my background is representing industrial oil and gas, and how I got experience with municipalization is as a big industrial, looking at the ways that industry and the city can work together to help everyone, and it's extremely doable. So one thing I think we're missing in this equation is where Xcel is going with their rates. The fact that they've invested in a coal plant and that they have a building the core strategy to invest ever more in grand central scale generation, which means that that's how they earn their rate of return. That's where their profit comes from. So that we're basically misaligned with Xcel. I mean, they do what they do well, but they're an investor-owned utility and they just want to grow and grow and grow at a central scale. We're seeing the electric system look more like the internet, going distributed. And that is not aligned with an investor-owned utilities.
The idea of City Council controlling a vital utility, I'm sorry, I've seen Boulder, scares the bejesus out of me. I tell you what, let's take a look at what the no side put out. I kind of like this one. Let's take a peek.
Oh, for Pete's sake.
Not again. I will get the flashlights. Oh, stupid, stinking twink.
Honey, are you okay?
No, I'm fed up. Ever since the city took over the power system, hundreds of millions of dollars, they can't get it to work.
And have you seen the bill?
And for what? We don't have any more renewable energy, not any. Did you just say something?
Well, I told you to vote no.
Well, it seemed like a good idea at the time.
I like that one. All right, so the line in there is, and no more renewable energy. In Boulder, there are a couple things that you say, and it's an automatic yes. You say education, and yes. And if you say open space, they say, oh, even more. And if you say renewable energy, or prairie dogs, the answer is yes, yes, yes. Will this proposal get us more renewable energy? Because God knows that's really what I want.
Well, the feasibility study that the city ran, and I think the word feasible is really important, but the feasibility study shows not 1 kilowatt hour. We're not buying for $300 to $600 million. We are buying lines and poles and outdated infrastructure, and not 1 kilowatt hour of local or renewable energy. We will also be spending part of the money that 2B is for is not just for research. It's to litigate a very messy divorce, because what the city is proposing is to condemn Xcel's lines and poles through eminent domain, and to take those over, and then the courts will decide who pays what for what. And
when you said $300 to $600 million, where do you get that number?
Well, let me go to the city's book.
Real fast.
Okay.
Just give me the short
that
answer.
From the R.W. Beck study that was done in 2005, $250,000 that the city spent. That forms the basis of it. It's basically the city at about $125 million, and it's Xcel at $1.2 billion. And I like to see
any more renewables?
No.
All right.
The short answer is no.
Now, I'm thinking that it being Boulder, that somehow the open space people are going to get together, and there's going to be prairie dogs running around on little wheels trying to power my house.
Like little hamsters?
Little hamster wheels.
That's a great idea. Let's do that.
Patent that. Will there be more renewables this way?
Absolutely, there'll be more renewables. Here's why.
Boy, you just lost my vote right there. All right, keep going.
Well, I'm not surprised, but here's why. Here's why. When you start with baseload coal cannot be dispatched. What that means is you can't ramp it up and you can't ramp it down. Whereas if you start with a GE turbine that ramps up very quickly in, say, 50 megawatt increments, you can bring in as much wind and as much solar as you possibly can off the grid in wholesale purchases, and then you can regulate that with natural gas so that you increase your overall renewable energy far more than Xcel could because of its sunk investment in massive coal.
I worry that now that we've taken power and we've politicized it, similar to what we're doing with healthcare, we're getting a lot of chefs into the kitchen. Now, I don't know what the right portfolio is for energy. What I want is the cheapest, most reliable energy for Colorado as it goes into the future, for myself, for my kids, for the manufacturing base. And I worry that when we start taking it over by the people and say, you know what, I think would be nice to have a little bit more solar, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and GE can sell us these wonderful turbines that will power up quickly, and GE loves that, and Vestas, who we've already given lots of corporate welfare for, gets to do this. I want somebody who owns the company to be making those decisions, because I'm not qualified to make it. All I know is I want the guaranteed lowest price. Does this guarantee me the lowest price?
It does. It guarantees you the lowest price.
So we're going to be doing more renewable energy, but it's going to be at less money. Why do I have a hard time believing that?
You have a hard time believing that because you've been indoctrinated to believe that a system that's based on coal and that is top down rather than bottom up is better.
Okay. Am I wrong on this one? We're going to get more renewables, but it's going to cost us less.
No, you started this by questioning my purchase of a solar system. And the fact of the matter is that my solar system won't even break even for 8 to 10 years, and that's subsidized at about 82%. So not subsidized.
All right. I'm going to tell you what, you've been so patient with me. Take the last word, take about 20 seconds, and tell me why people should vote yes on this.
People should vote yes on this because this is local independent thinking where the people of Boulder want cost-effective energy, they want clean energy, they want local control, they want to be the home of innovation. They want to create and spur competition in this growing distributed energy.
Because competition and innovation, of course, comes from city council elitists, not from private industry.
There's no free market here. We've got two monopolies.
Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you. Listen for me late nights on 850 KOA. Tell a friend.